using 300-gram paper, which is taped down with low-tack tape to a board. My colours will be ultramarine blue and golden quinacridone gold, or raw sienna, or a light, very burnt sienna if that works for you. And it should be a beautiful light wash. So first of all, I wet the top of the paper and then bring in a light wash of the ultramarine blue. So bring it in fairly lightly with a soft brush just to the top of the paper. Then follow that with quinacridone gold, or your burnt sienna or your raw sienna, and more or less on dry paper this time, so it picks up the edges of the paper. There's a bit of bleeding going on from the wet sky into the earth. I'm going to encourage that. In fact, I'm going to introduce some distant hills. So I'm going to bring this over here like this. Not too big. That will sort of give it a sort of greenish tinge, which is really lovely. So we already have a basic landscape. And if it bleeds up into the sky, that's fine, because that can be distant bushes. Right, I'm going to put in some distant bushes now, and I'm using a very light mix of Hooker's green. You don't need it too bright because it is in the distance, so I'm going to knock it down with a little bit of the ultramarine wash, and I'm just going to try that on a piece of paper. That looks not too bad. Maybe strengthen it a bit. You have to keep testing your colours on a separate piece of paper to make sure they're okay. I think it's a very good idea. Now we're going to go with wetting the paper again if it's already dry, so that I can put in a line of bushes. But first of all, I'm going to mask the lower half of this paper because I don't want this paint going everywhere. I'm just doing a light spray so that when I do put the bushes in, it'll just go there, nowhere else. Okay, so I'm picking up I'm still with a fluffy brush, picking up my light wash of green. I'm just going to dab it along here. And I twist and turn the brush so that you sort of get a feeling of distant trees. It doesn't have to be exact. In fact, really better if it's not. So it's just make the brush dance across the paper. So you're getting that. Leave a gap, make some small, make some a bit taller. It's nothing regular in this bushland. I use a very sharp stick to scratch some little trunks into the distant bushes. Doesn't have to be too much, it just gives you the suggestion of distant trunks. Right, next I'm going to put in some distant wildflowers because we want them to look as if they're disappearing into the distance. Right, because the thing that got me about this country was it's so vast, and the flowers are like carpet. So we're going to put a little line of wildflowers across here, and for that we're going to use gouache, which is a very useful tool for the watercolourists. So I'm going to put out a little bit of gouache here. It's a white chalky substance. That's it. Okay, now I get what I call a Scuzzy brush, which is a really old brush that I've got from some place, probably out of the kids' toolbox, I don't know. And I've chewed it up with a nail scissors, so it's got rough edges. The reason I'm doing this is that I can then just have little random spots in the distance, which I'm going to now do across with my brush. Not regularly, just very gently dab them across, so it looks like a little field of white wildflowers in the distance there. We're going to paint some shrubs in front of it, so don't be worrying about it being too exact. You have to be careful here that you don't turn it into sort of regular measles, so try and make it a little bit irregular. That's quite hard for some of us because we like to be tidy. But give it a go. I think that's enough. Now I'm going to put in a path into my painting, but I'm going to have a little practice first, and I'm going to do it with texture colour so that you can see quite clearly how I'm going to do this. So the path that's going to lead into the painting is like an S-bend, and an S-bend is a very good way to lead an eye into a painting. So this is how you do it. You do it just a fairly tight little wobble here, and then get bigger as it comes out. And then again repeat, maybe cross over sometimes, and as it comes forward it gets bigger. That's a sort of fairly rough idea of what you can do. It's worthwhile having a little practice. Try and keep it loose, because you want it to appear adventurous. You're sort of walking into this park. Okay, so we'll take that away. Had our little practice. Now I'm going to try it on the actual piece itself. So I've got a Derwent Inktense pencil. I'm going to put it in fairly lightly, just so that a bit of a guide to me. I don't want it too heavy. So once again, having my little loose practice, I'm now going to put the little S-bend in here, and as it comes out, it comes a bit wider. I don't know whether you can see that. I'll just make it a little bit harder. There we go. There is my path into the wildflowers. I've done it with a water-soluble pencil so that it will dissolve if I put water on it, but at least it gives me an idea of where my path is. Right, using a soft brush, I quite like this one. It's the Atelier Silver blending quill, but it's soft. It's a goat hair brush, so it picks up quite a bit of colour. I'm going to mix the ultramarine blue with some of the green there. Just going to test it on a piece of paper to see if it's any good. I'll try that. Yep, that's pretty good. I don't want it too strong. And then using the brush almost in a downward motion, I'm going to push it down into the paper like that. So the brush, because it's quite soft, will sort of, there we go. And again on the other side, it's coming right over the stems there. Also I'm going to put in a bit of a shadow. Not too much. There we go. Might even do another, a bit more of a one here. I'm going to make this one a little bit tall, just out of interest's sake, so it's almost a sapling. Try not make it regular again. It's really hard for us to not make it regular. It's got to be sort of, if it's Australian bush, it's all scruggly and everything. Okay, now I'll put the foliage in, as they say, the foliage. Just dabbing it in basically. Twist and turn the brush so you get different marks. Don't just keep to the one mark. And that's just fine. Bit of shadow. Okay, leave it at that. I've had to strengthen the colour on these because the wildflowers are showing through a little bit too much, so I'm just strengthening the colour on this, making them quite dark. There we go. That's alright. A bit more green. That's better. They're always darker at the bottom anyway, so just make them a little bit more irregular. There we go. Might even take that one off a bit. Right, now comes an exciting bit. Well, it's all exciting, but this is even more exciting. I'm using Quinacridone Red. Any rose colour would do. It's straight out of the tube, so I put it straight out on the tube. I have got my Scuzzy Brush all chewed up, ready to go. And then I'm going to put in a field of these coloured flowers. I've already done some, so you can see that. Sort of like think in terms of the fields of colour fading back into the background. Leaves plenty of spaces. We're going to put some blue ones in a minute. So try and make those fields of colour as interesting as you possibly can. Different shapes. Then I give it a bit of a light spray because I do tend to blend together quite well. like that. Just a light spray. Okay, so you get the feeling of the flowers in the distance. Wash your brush out. Then, same again, this time going to use Cobalt Blue straight out of the tube, not wetting it down at all because I want it as dense as possible. So, Cobalt Blue, lovely blue. Okay, once again with the Scuzzy Brush, going to dab it in here and bring in the blue. Okay, right over my little path there, because I do tend to wander into the path. Can you see how we're building up different? Take it right off the edge there, right up to the trees, even through the trees if you like. I can always put those branches in again later, which I probably will do. So as I come forward, I'm making the blotches a bit bigger. Try to remember to turn my brush around. Now, I think I'll give it just a very, very light spray. That's good. Very light. There we go. Right, now I've added the full-on rose to the blue and added a bit of gouache. It's very dry. There's no wet in wet here. I want it as dry as possible. So we should get some lovely purple flowers, which I can bring in over the top here. Try and blend them in a bit. And this time I'm not going to spray it because we're coming in closer. Just twist and turn. I'm going to put another shrub in the middle here just to give us a lead in. But that's a lovely purple. I like that. That's it. Just a suggestion. You don't need to spell it out. I'm coming over my little path here. Oh, I'm so in love with this. I'm going to do some more. Very nice. Okay. Right. So, here's my charcoal Inktense pencil here. I'm going to put in a fairly large sapling here. Just keep dipping it in the water. It'll give you lovely rough edges. And there may be another one here, just in front of that. Some twigs. Sort of branching pattern as it comes up into the sky. It gives us the idea that there is some distance involved in this painting. Then getting my soft brush again, mixing up the blue and the green. Right. And then coming in. I want that brush, yes, that's better. Dabbing straight down. Take it up off the top of the picture, so it's always a good idea to make the painting appear that it's, there we go. I could cover up that bush there a bit. Now you're getting a feeling of walking through the bush a little bit more. I think I might put another one in on the other side, just a bit further back. So back to the old charcoal pencil, a bit more of an angle here, straight up, trying to make it all scruggly and how it is in the Australian bush. It's very dry land out there. It's a miracle that these flowers actually grow at all for such a short time of the year. There we go. Alright, same again. More blue, more green. Touch of water if it's necessary, not too much. Straight down, that's it. Cover up that other bush. I wasn't totally happy with the way the white came through, so I always say if you run into trouble on a landscape, put a tree or a bush in front of it. It always works. It's your painting, you can do as you wish. Sometimes you need to darken these things a little bit. I might just strengthen that slightly. Okay, I think it's time for some more wildflowers now. Okay, I've masked off the path and the sky because I don't particularly want flowers lying up into the sky. So, new approach now, because the flowers are a bit closer, we're going to get the fan brush, yeah, tipped it in some of the purpley paint with a bit more water and spatter. Love doing this. Just down there, that's fantastic. Alright, change colours now. I'm going for some red. Just washed my brush out, dry it out. Let's go for some pink. Why not? Come on. You just have to fiddle with it till you get enough paint on the brush so it will spray out. Ah, there we go. Here we go, here again. Maybe just a bit more. You really just have to experiment till you get it the right consistency. So it's thicker as you come forward, yeah? Excellent. Take away that, take away that. Great. Right, now, for a final touch, I actually get a very fine brush. This is a silver Silk 88 number 1 round, and actually painting some very close flowers here so that you get, I don't do it too much because it gets too fussy. We don't want that. So, but I am going to give you the impression that these flowers are in closer. It's very difficult to try and make this sort of random when it's not. So just do the best you can and try some different, sort of even put some white ones in with the gouache. There we go. And some white ones in the background there a bit. Lost my path a bit, but it doesn't really matter because, you know, you are sort of walking into the bush and the path's not all that determined. And now I'll flick in a bit of grass, so back to the green again. So we can just flick, 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 flick. Bit of flick round the trees. Grass always grows underneath the trees. Bit of flick in the, just not too much. Don't get too carried away. There's a lot of grass out there, but at least it gives a bit more different texture to it. A bit over the path because, I mean, the path is going to have things coming over it like this. It's not a, well, look, it's a path in the bush. And for a final touch, I've got some burnt sienna or gold paint here. I'm just going to flick some of that onto the path. I don't care if it goes into the bushes as well, just to give it a bit of a feeling of pebbles. Yeah, that's it. Oops, a bit too much there. You can always, if you're quick, you can always dab it out. That's it. That's it. Right. So once you take the tape off, you should get a lovely white edge. I had a bit of bleeding up here, but that sometimes happens. Hopefully you get a nice painting of the feeling of walking through the bush and looking at the wildflowers, which are just absolutely magnificent. And I hope you enjoyed that painting. Thank you for watching.